tonight. I'm joined by Salem LeBlanc. He's a writer and creator who has some really interesting projects coming out soon. Please welcome him to the studio. How's it going?
It's going fairly well. How are you doing?
Doing good. Busy day, but doing well. I'm sure you can say the same for yourself.
Oh yeah.
But I appreciate you making the time to join us tonight to talk, or join me tonight to talk. I always like to start these things with a little introduction. So if you don't mind, could you tell us, for people who maybe not familiar with who you are, just tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. I'm an aspiring writer. I'm trying to get into writing short stories, novels, novellas, possibly even a comic. And just I'm just somebody who's trying to get my footing in the door. I did graduate from college with a degree in English writing
Nice.
and a minor in journalism, so I know how to do the craft. All I got to do is prove that I can do it efficiently. and and so yeah, I'm just working on a few personal projects of mine, and at the same time, also I worked a little bit for your magazine for the first issue,
Nice. Hmm.
and right now I'm uh, just working a job and working through life and writing on the side. So
Nice, man.
I'm yeah. I'm sorry.
No, it's cool,
I
man. You're doing
I didn't
great.
write up, but
No, it's cool.
yeah,
Hey,
I
don't worry
didn't
about
write
it,
an
man.
introduction.
It's no, it's all good. That's great. I think that gives the people an idea of what you're all about, and what you kind of have got going on. Because I think you are probably one of the newer members to the Wicked team, so it's good to get people to
Mm.
know who you are. So speaking of you being a new member on the team, and become I noticed you have got a lot of projects in the works, like you have some short stories and other things like that. So I was wondering what kind of first inspired you to become a writer.
I think every I've always been fascinated with storytelling. I mean, just and storytelling hits all forms of media and entertainment. So, I mean, as a kid, I just always loved watching television or watching movies or reading books or playing video games. And honestly, the thing that always gained my attention was the narrative. It was always how the characters interact with one another, or even in a video game, even though a lot of people are more after the gameplay. Even to this day, the thing that sells it for me is the story that is told,
Hmm.
and it's just something that has always fascinated me, and it's something that always draws me in. But at the same time, it's something that I really really want to contribute to, because in terms of like art and creation, I mean, storytelling is one of our base creations. I mean, it's something that can be made up on the spot, and it's something that has been with us for not millions, but thousands of years, because you can make it up on the spot around a campfire, or you can spend years with note taking and jotting down your excerpts and combining it into that American novel.
Hmm. That's
So
really interesting, man.
it's just it's all just it's all just and it's a very very expansive form of art, and it's one that I think is never going to lose its value.
Hmm. So to me, it sounds like, as opposed to being, say, maybe inspired by a particular writer or a particular work, you're actually you've been inspired by the art of storytelling itself.
Oh yeah, oh yes, the art of storytelling itself. But I could point to uh, I could definitely point to creators and to works of fiction that have definitely uh, assisted my love of storytelling.
What are some of
And
your favorite authors or works?
Oh, okay. So in terms of writing, my favorite authors are definitely people like Edgar Allan Poe, Nathaniel Hawthorne, um, Richard Matheson, Washington Irving, Stephen King, um, H.P. Lovecraft. I'm very, very much into the horror writers and or the Gothic writers or the um, Romanticism writers. And I also do have a love for the other authors such as Mark Twain and who's another one that I have a fondness for.
Well, you know,
It's kind of hard to remember everybody at the
no,
top of your
I
head.
totally get that, but it even the ones you have named kind of points towards a bit of an interesting taste. Those are some dense works, aren't they? Pretty hard to read. Some might say,
I think
like
I
in terms
think
of vocabulary. Like,
people
sorry, go ahead.
yeah, yeah. No, that's fine. But I was going to say, I think that if people sit down to read it, but not to just skim through it, but to just grab a drink and
Mhm.
sit down like this at a fireside or sit in bed, just sit somewhere comfortable and
Mhm.
lose yourself in it for a while.
Mm.
That a lot of these works, especially by people like Washington Irving, Edgar Allan Poe, or Nathaniel Hawthorne, I think people will find that it's a lot easier than they believed it to be. And also
Interesting.
another thing that I would recommend is definitely because of the authors I mentioned, since their work is considered public domain, just sit down and listen to it in an audiobook version on YouTube. You know, you don't have to necessarily read it. I mean, that's my preferred way, but it's like, if you are having a hard time comprehending it in your head, hearing it aloud can uh, can really help you understand and comprehend the words that are written.
That's a pretty smart idea, actually. And especially with those kind of titles, a lot of those are in the public domain now, so you can
Hmm.
get those for free on YouTube and find those readily available on websites much more easily.
Yep. And the other thing to remember is that these authors have a very, very diverse library. So if you have trouble reading one story by them, doesn't mean that you
Hmm.
won't be able to read the other.
No, that's a really good point. Yeah, nice. So maybe I'll have to give some Edgar Allan Poe a shot. I've always heard good things about his work. So
Oh
you so
yeah.
you're a fan of the Gothic style?
Yeah, more specifically, just or I guess more broadly, is just dark romanticism.
Hmm. And do you find that plays into your writing?
I would hope so. The thing is, though, is that I am being very experimental right now, especially with the short story projects that I was working on. I'm just trying to I'm trying to throw a bunch of things at the wall, and I'm going to wait and see what people's response is to all of them because they're right now, especially in the horror sphere, the thing that was popular for a few years and is still somewhat popular today is the creepy pastas, and I kind of equate those to more like campfire stories, just because they're the modern form of that in a way. And the thing is with the creepypasta style, even though it's not as vivid or as how would I want to say it's articulate as like something like Poe or Matheson or Hawthorne would write. They're still very effective in their delivery. And I guess the um, the big contrast, the big difference in style is that nowadays we are much more simplistic, but simplicity is not always a bad thing.
Hmm. So that's an interesting point. I know you mentioned your short stories. I wanted to ask as well, what kind of short stories are you working on, and what can you tell us about those?
Well, these short stories are all connected in a in a universe that I've created. That the whole reason I made it is so that when I'm working on bigger projects, if I ever want to write a short story but not have it be a one-off, but have it contribute to something, I can throw it into this overarching universe with the set of rules I've made. And this universe is monster focused, just so that I can because like I told you, I have a high appreciation for storytelling, and monsters and urban legends and folklore. Those are some of the oldest ones out there, so those are always going to be timeless. And
Mm.
I I've always tried to just create things that I've tried to be as original as possible with them. But I've started to come to realization that it's like there's not really anything wrong with wearing your influences on your sleeve. And for these, I've decided, okay, so I'll take some stories and some folklores and I'll give them my own little spin, but I won't try to reinvent them entirely. It's like, I'll I'll make it obvious what has inspired me, but I will present it in a way that hopefully can give someone a new perspective on it.
I love this. This is a great comment. I'm gonna put this up on the screen. Intense Thinker says the Salem Cinematic Universe. I love it, man. That's awesome.
uh,
Yeah, that's
uh,
something that's so interesting to me because I'm a huge fan of monsters as well. Ever since I was a kid
mhm.
watching X-Files, I've always been a fan of monsters, and so I've been really excited about your short stories for a while now, and kind of what you've got cooking up with
Yeah,
it.
yeah, and I've actually finished all of them but one.
Oh
I'm
wow.
actually yeah, so I've got six, but the sixth one, um, because like I mentioned, all the monsters were already established through like legends, folklore, or whatever. But the last one was an original creation from a friend of mine,
Oh
and so
wow.
I had to. So yeah, I had to talk to her, and I had to go over like the rules that she had established for this creature. I had to figure out how I could fit it into the universe with the rules that I have already established. And so now that I have figured that all out, now I've started just doing basic synopsis notes and finishing up some research I'd done for it, because for the location of this where the story takes place, actually took a trip over to where I wanted to get inspiration from it. So I've put some I tend to put a lot of thought and effort into these. I don't want to just pump them out, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally get that. No, we got another person in the chat. John W says Salem Cinematic Universe is better than Marvel Cinematic Universe. Oh man, that's
Well,
good stuff, man.
well, I don't mean to brag, but if what they are teasing is what's to come, then I have a feeling that 5-year-olds would have better creativity than the MCU.
Oh man, so yeah, they're setting the bar real low here for us, I suppose. But I think I think they're right though. I think you're starting up something here that is going to be really cool. I think a lot of people really enjoy monsters, so I think it'll be interesting to
Hmm.
see. Now, are you going to do the have that other one, that new creature, be the last story in the book? Is that kind of like the idea, or have you decided on the
Oh well,
order yet?
this is there will be no like official order,
Oh, really?
because
Oh, interesting.
what's going to happen is these 6 short stories, I'm just calling them volume 1,
Mhm.
and they're just going to have loose connections. Like you're just going to notice some what's the word? You're going to notice some reoccurring items and some reoccurring call calls and callbacks and such. And I'm also going to, like I said, I'm going to go ahead and wear my influences on my sleeve with this. And at the end of each one, I'll have a description of an item that is significant in that story, and it'll come with an explanation of it. And it's going to be kind of like what you see in like the Bloodborne and Dark Souls series. in which the overarching story of what's going on in front of you is not necessarily the main focus. It's like something you have to piece together on the side.
Mm-hmm. That's
And
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, and I kind of like that because I also want people to interpret stuff for themselves. And I think that it'd be fun to let them do that. And it's also, like I said, I'm being very experimental. So it'd be nice to see if this works or not. Because if it does, then I'll keep doing it. And if it doesn't, I'll try
Mm-hmm.
something new.
Speaking of trying something new, we actually have John has a question in the chat. Do you have plans for a longer writing project after your short stories are wrapped up?
Yes, I do. Yeah, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I have returned to working on my main horror project, and I have actually been getting artists to create some images for me in preparation for that, so that I can, so that once I start releasing the pieces of it, that I can have some thumbnails and some artwork that can grab people's attention. Because the thing is with writing, especially in just literature form, it's kind of hard to advertise yourself because people are visually stimulated,
Hmm.
and it's hard to pull people's attention when you just have words. Just Times New Roman 12-point font is not as attractive as an an elaborate art piece.
Right. I could see that. Yeah. You know, it's like when you add an image on Twitter to your supplement your words or something. You know, it just
Yeah.
draws the eye,
Uh,
like you said.
I mean, like, it's almost the equivalent of like when you're scrolling through Twitter and you see a tweet. Well, if here's the thing, if you're just scrolling through it, are you going to stop and read words, or are you going to stop because you saw like an interesting image or GIF, and you go like, oh wait, what did I miss? And you go back and
Hmm. That's very true. Yeah.
yeah.
Huh.
I'm also hoping that because I have I've spent a lot of time and effort on this particular project that I'm hoping to get back into, and I'm also wanting to get some artwork done of it just so that I can start uh, the beginning stages of considering a comic adaptation of it.
So you have considered moving into doing some comics as well?
Oh yeah, I because thing is, my favorite thing to write is dialogue. I absolutely love writing dialogue, and comics writing I have found is very much like script writing, whether it be stage play or screenwriting.
Mm-hmm.
And I absolutely love doing that kind of writing because I like descriptive writing, but I'll admit that sometimes that's where I probably need my best work at. But something that I've always been told by people is that I am great with dialogue, and I do not mean to like speak highly of myself, but I am very confident in my ability to write good dialogue.
Hmm. That's
And
important.
so so with comics, you have to write for the artist, the direction and the the images that are going on in the panels. But I would love to just be able to write something that is just pages and pages long, where my words that the people are going to read are just dialogue, and have that know that that's something that I'm uh, very confident in that I can deliver on.
Yeah, it's a really useful skill to have too, to be able to tell a story through the dialogue. That's a very valuable technique.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's really interesting. So where did your love of monsters? How did that all come about? When did that happen?
I don't. I never really had like a I never really had like a burning like love for them or anything, but I will say it may have just come from the uh fact of the matter that growing up I always loved dinosaurs.
I get you there, and
Yeah, and the other thing is that as a kid I was always interested in the things that weren't uh human per se. I was more interested in the things that were uh not emotionless, but devoid of like that human quality, that human aspect. So it's
Hmm.
like I was more interested in like one of my favorite all time movies when I was a kid and still to this day is Jurassic Park.
Oh man.
And the thing is, I mean, as I grew older, I really liked Dr. Grant, and as a kid, I kind of liked Dr. Grant. But as a kid, I was more invested in the monstrosities in front of me, the dinosaurs, the things that
Hmm.
you could find yourself in awe and terror at the same time.
Hmm.
And it just, I guess it kind of spoke to a part of me as a kid where it's like, the life in and of itself is rather boring, but there's this fantastical place right in front of you on that screen where these monsters are are alive and affecting the world that they inhabit. But in a way, it's different for them because these weren't monsters. We dig up these fossils, so these things were once real,
Hmm.
and so it just
Hmm. Yeah.
it pulls your mind into like realizing like, oh my god, uh, these things that seem so alien to us were walking among the same earth that we do today.
Yeah, that's
And
pretty wild.
yeah, and just and sometimes it's you don't even have to have that imagination or that thought and that wonder for something as old as dinosaurs, 65 million years. Think about all of the things that we have found recently, like the frilled shark or the coelacanth. You know, these things that just seem so alien are still among us today, and it's always interesting how reality can be almost as amazing as fantasies, but we have to go looking for it. And sometimes the searching part for it is rather rather tedious and such, and we don't want to put in the effort unless it gets boring. And that's probably why, as a kid, I didn't want to, I didn't have too much enthusiasm to go looking for it. So I just turned to, uh, my books and movies and such to find them. But it's like
Hmm.
today, you can find and lose yourself in the wonder of the real world, and then you can turn it into a story to put it in a book,
Wow.
and you and you can take the elements of reality and put them into the fantastical beasts that exist. I mean, there's lots of there's lots of ways that it's been done, even with the classical monsters, such as Bram Stoker's Dracula. I mean, there has been many, many iterations of vampires throughout the ages, and while most of them are are what's the word I'm looking for, are congruent, I guess,
Hmm.
or with sexual desires, imagery, and such. Bram Stoker's Dracula, even though that sex is a prominent feature in there, what you find is that Bram Stoker himself put on his distaste of foreigners into the Dracula monster itself, and so he was
Hmm.
so he was taking things that he was observing from his perceived reality, and he was putting it into uh, a beast to portray an idea,
That's pretty
and that is
interesting. Yeah.
and that is not to say it's good or bad. That's just I'm just saying matter of fact.
Hmm. Hmm. No, I think that's an important idea. Even like you said, whether good or bad, it shows you that there's more going on behind the scenes with these monsters than meets the eye. It's not just a surface level thing most of the time. Is that right?
Oh yeah, and also think about like one of the monsters that I'm doing a short story on is the Jersey Devil,
Oh, I do. I love
and
that one. I love the Jersey Devil. Yeah.
yeah, and the whole way that the monster was created is very, very interesting. And the funny thing is, it's all political banter that created it. Because
Really?
back in the day, Ben Franklin, he wrote his, Old Richard's Almanac. Well, a uh, a rival a rival ideologically based family, the Leeds family. I forgot the gentleman's name from the Leeds family, but he wrote a response to it. He wrote his own almanac, and he pretty much bantered Franklin, and Franklin thought that this was funny, and Franklin was a very, very what's the word I'm looking for? He was a very, very comical man at times, and he knew how to rile people up. And he called him, "Oh, you're just the." He alluded that this man was just the Leeds devil,
Hmm.
that he was like just a demon. But it's like it was supposed to be like comical,
Really?
but yet the whole term that he coined lived on, and it
Beyond that.
eventually evolved into people literally believing that there was this Leeds devil
I see.
in the
Huh.
Pine Barrens of New Jersey.
Wow. That's pretty funny,
And
man. Yeah.
yeah, and there's a lot more to it because there is a legend and such,
Hmm.
but it's like but it's like the seed was planted by this political spit going back and forth between Ben Franklin and this gentleman from the Leeds family.
That's funny. You know, in an odd way, you could say that Ben Franklin was responsible for the creation of the Jersey Devil legend.
You actually could, you really could.
That's awesome.
And it's and I mean, to mention just how influential these monsters are, and these stories, and these legends. If you are into hockey at all, New Jersey has a hockey team called the New Jersey Devils.
Oh, really?
These things stick with us. Storytelling um, is a very, very infectious uh, pastime.
Yeah, you know, and it was funny because it made me think of when you were talking earlier, and you said how urban legends and myths and these kind of things were some of the earliest forms of storytelling, and made me think that legends like Beowulf, that's like an old form of just an urban legend, really, if you think about it.
Oh
It
yeah,
and it just shows you how long that stuff. It just goes to show you, like you said, exactly that. It's ingrained in us. It's been going on for so long.
we're always going to need to find a way to explain something,
Hmm.
and we we're always going to want a reason as to why something is. However, uh, I do feel like we are sometimes trying to distance ourselves from that, and I think that you can see that in the tenets of postmodernism.
Hmm.
Because, but I'm thinking people are starting to realize that it's it's a losing battle to fight human nature,
Hmm.
and human nature is always, even if there is no meaning, there is there's always going to be a search for it.
Hmm. True. True. Yeah. And that's where the interest lies, is in that search for those answers.
Oh
Um.
yeah,
Uh.
yeah, and that's why I'm more interested in romanticism right now rather than postmodernism, because I'm I'm finding, and you're starting to see this a lot too, with people's backlash to the deconstruction of many beloved franchises and heroes.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, you're seeing that people are not um, content with being told that everything that you've been told is flawed, and it's like, well, of course it was, because that's to err is to human.
Hmm.
uh, but that's the thing, is like, I think that it's interesting that people are trying to make things like pure and ideal nowadays,
Well, yeah.
and it's kind of spitting in the face of who and what we are.
Well, it's that long swing of the PC culture that's been going on for a very long time. You know, it's starting starting to swing back the other way because it's become so, I don't know, in your face. I don't know. It's just become so prevalent.
Yeah, and the thing is, let's 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 take this to how can I say this? Okay, let's imagine that we're in ancient Greece, and you're told that you're told that Zeus is a woman, and you as an ancient Greek, you're like, no,
Mhm.
that's not right. Zeus is a man,
Uh-huh.
and then they tell you, oh, what are you? I don't know. Are you a supporter of Persia or something? What? No, I just think that Zeus is a man. It's
You
it's
demon.
just, yeah, but
No,
all
I
I'm getting
get
at
what
is
you're
like,
saying. No, I get what you're saying. You're taking it to the logical conclusion of that argument, basically.
yeah, it's the fact that it's like you're brought up uh you're brought up with these heroes or these figures being told they're a certain way.
Hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with changing it, because the Greek myths, they're not always what's the word I'm looking for?
Consistent.
Yes, consistent.
Hmm.
So sometimes you're going to have changes,
Mm-hmm.
but the themes are always the same. The themes are always
Interesting.
uh, established.
Yeah.
And when you change Zeus into who's a patriarch to a matriarch, that's going to have backlash.
Mm-hmm.
And when people go like, "Oh, why have I, why am I getting this flack?" It's like, well, you can't you can't drastically change something and expect people to just go with it. You can offer a different take, because the gods in ancient Greece, they were a little different when you go from city state to city state. For example, I think it was Aphrodite, but Aphrodite in Sparta, because she was always presented as like in the rest of Greece, she was presented as like a very, very um, feminine figure. But in Sparta, she was depicted as very muscular, very, very athletic.
Mm-hmm.
And the reasoning is because Spartan culture values strength and physical ability, whereas the other Greek city-states were a little more interested in like philosophy and the arts and such. And so you would have differences, but the thing is, Aphrodite, even though that she was portrayed differently, her themes were still the same. What she had ruled over was still the same.
Interesting.
So,
Yeah. No, I see where you're coming from with that. That's actually a pretty logical, argument to make,
mhm.
and I can see how
so
you could relate it to the present day situation. But getting back
yes,
on.
yeah. I was just gonna say real quick. I just, I guess that's why I'm trying to just have fun with it rather than deconstruct other things.
Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Um, that's a good point because I think a lot of times you see deconstruction is where people are tending to go these days. You know, especially in Hollywood. That's
Oh yeah.
very popular right now.
I mean, that's why Japanese entertainment is booming right
Yes,
now.
yes, I'm 100% on that one, man. Yeah, for whatever reason, you don't see that. I mean, I think it's just because it's a different culture, obviously, but they haven't really gone that direction. It's just they're still just doing their thing.
Yeah, they have not, and the and the differences have to do with culture for sure, but I'm also wondering if it has to do with the fact that Japan held on to, because we really influenced them after World War II, but Japan has held on to that almost that 1950s American hard work ethic, and then they've also fused it with their Eastern philosophies, and it's just created this. Even in their storytelling, there's like this. There's this quest for meaning, and it's very very unique.
Hmm.
It seems unique, but in a way, they're still doing the things that they've done for the past how many years. It's it's our culture that has really really taken an interesting swing, especially in the art of storytelling.
So we got another question in the chat. Intense Thinkers asks, Salem, favorite Japanese folklore or myth? That's a great question. That's a really good one.
Ooh, oh man, folklore and myth.
And they got some good ones over there, from what I understand.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with. I know this might be cheating, but I'm just gonna have to go with just their overall library of like urban ghost stories and myths.
Hmm.
Just I can't I can't think of the names right now, but it's like just the the slit mouthed woman who walks around with the scissors, asking, "Am I pretty or not?"
Hmm.
Or the kitsunes, or the or like the ghost in the toilet, or the Satoko and Hayako. Just their Japanese horror, especially, is incredible. I cannot stress that enough. I actually argue that the best horror today comes from Japan,
Hmm.
and I would argue that their horror is probably on the same level as the Silver Age of horror here in America.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I
So,
I think that
yeah,
makes a lot of sense. Yeah, have you ever read any Junji Ito?
I have a little bit, but I have not actually sat down and
I've
purged
seen
it for hours and hours. I mean, not
I've
purged.
seen some of the anime,
Um,
but from my understanding, a lot of people like his stuff. And but you're right. There's a lot of good stuff over there. There's a lot of really interesting creators. Like I remember hearing about a story where it was a manga where all of a sudden there was like people like felt like they were being called to this mountain, and they would have to go into
mhm,
these, and there's all these people shaped holes, and they felt like they were being called into theirs. Like they'd walk to the place, and they all of a sudden, that's my hole. I have to go to it. Like I got to go, and they would like slowly meld into it. It was just like
mhm.
there's this weird thing. So yeah, there's all sorts of interesting creepy stories over there. Um, but say Nightmare Fuel asks Salem, what element of Japanese culture most influences your writing, if any?
Ooh, hmm. I would have to say it's definitely because, especially in a lot of American and Western writing, and actually there was this guy called Literature Devil. He actually did a video recently that was really good, that explored the differences between Eastern and Western writing.
Mm-hmm.
And with Western writing, we usually center the conflict around person runs into conflict, and person must work around the conflict. In the Eastern writing, it's more about living the day to day, and the conflict comes into your day to day, but it can be worked once it is uh, solved. The story and your life continue forward. So
Hmm.
even if the main conflict has been resolved, there's still more story to tell. And I think I try to incorporate that just a little bit, because I do find it a lot more interesting to what how am I trying to say this? I find it more interesting to introduce people before the actual conflict begins, and I want to extend everything a little bit afterwards, because I think that even though that you want the readers to understand what happens afterwards, and you want them to make interpretations of themselves, at the same time, you as the writer, you just want to share some epilogues, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
also, besides that rambling point, another thing that I really like, another thing that I like from Japanese um, styles and such, especially in horror, is that the monsters and the villains are, or the paranormal and such, from like folklore and myths and such, they're always they're more focused on emotion rather than like vengeance, because like even something like The Grudge, which is a more modern example. The thing is, it's not a ghost that is seeking vengeance, or seeking vengeance, or seeking like a resolution. It's literally just the emotion that was created in that grief, and it's just literally all consuming. Because even when the people responsible for causing the death of the woman are all out of the picture, the ghost still lingers. So it's an interesting tale, because it's an interesting story, because it's almost a commentary on the human emotion of anger and resentment and such. Because if you let it fester, it starts to eat away at people who had nothing to do with it, to do with your suffering.
Hmm.
And I kind of like things like that. I like it when it's I like it when there's a little more to the story, or a little more to the experience, than just this event happened and this is the reaction. I kind of need it. Me personally, I need a little something. I need something that once I'm done watching or reading it, I have to sit down and actually think about and contemplate what I had just experienced.
Hmm. No, yeah, I could see that. Yeah, makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah, and we have another question, kind of a follow up on that in a way. Still basing it in that Japanese culture and horror. Do you think Japan's creative horror culture has been mostly influenced by the events of World War II and the bomb, or do you think they've always had that in them?
Oh, well, in my opinion, I think I think the bombs in World War II and our influence, because our occupation of Japan definitely shifted their culture in a way that would have that drastically changed it. Um,
Hmm.
hmm. They've always had that. They've always had their form of storytelling with them, like even their urban stories and such, and their newer creations of horror have always are still very much in line with their form of storytelling. I would say, however, that I would say that it did give them new elements to delve into, because when the bomb dropped, they were the first nation and people to actually experience the horror of an entire city wiped out in the blink of an eye. And not only a city wiped out in just a finger snap, but also having the long term effects of radiation and such, and people dying of that exposure and suffering for very long.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that that led to very unique ideas and expressions that you have never seen across the world. I mean, like the perfect example is Godzilla. I mean,
Hmm.
that is a monster that was born to embody the horrors of atomic warfare.
Hmm. That is a
And
very good point. Yeah.
people tend to forget the very first Godzilla movie was a horror movie. There was
Really?
no, yeah, that was not meant to be the cheesy, big lizard fights another lizard movie. This was meant to make you feel uncomfortable and face some harsh realities through a new myth.
And a uniquely Japanese perspective on that myth.
Yep, and that unique Japanese experience was also a unique experience that only they across in the whole world could tell at the time.
And still to this day, even there's never been another bomb and atomic bomb dropped on another nation.
That's true, but the unfortunate reality is that everybody who has experienced that bombing, they are just like the survivors of the Holocaust. They're starting to die out.
Hmm.
And we're losing the voices of those who have actually experienced these events,
Wow.
these some of the darkest chapters in world history.
Mm-hmm. That's tragic, really.
So we need to
Hmm.
keep telling stories so that we can keep learning from the past. However, we do need to realize that we need to stop embellishing or downplaying or over exaggerating the stories as well.
Yeah, but that just you're right. It does show the importance of keeping the story alive and the value of stories and how powerful they can be. But that's some heavy stuff moving, you know what I mean?
Oh, my,
No, no, I appreciate it, man. I really do. It's fascinating. I honestly I took a class in college. It was called Physics for War, Physics for Peace, and it was basically an English and physics combined course. And so
oh, okay.
we would read literature along with learning physics, and it had to have heavy emphasis on the nuclear bombings that happened in Japan. And so it's a long time been, I'm fascinated by that stuff. So hearing your perspective on it is really interesting. I think you had a lot of interesting points there. Oh, intense great. I think it says check out Grave of the Fireflies if you can handle
Yep,
it.
yep.
That's another one
I
that'll
have.
make you cry, man.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, yeah. I think I've seen the first scene. I'm a wimp.
Mm,
I'll probably have to finish it. Although I did start reading. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the manga. What's it called? Uh, oh shoot, it's blanking me on the. It's about the bombings. Do you have? It's manga about.
I don't think I've read
It's
that.
a classic one. It's called Barefoot Gen or Barefoot Gen.
Yeah, I've not read that.
It's a good one. I highly recommend it. Anyone. It's written created by a survivor of the bombings, and he
Mm.
goes through his whole story during it, afterward, rebuilding his whole life, and what he looks, where he goes from there. So quite fascinating stuff. But so you mentioned earlier in our chat that you worked on some articles and interviews for the upcoming Wicked magazine that we have coming out in this month. How was your experience with that, and what kind of stuff did you do?
Oh, very. The experience was really good. Got to talk to the creators of the Mythoverse and talk to a YouTuber called Weaponized Nerd Rage. Just talked about the Mythoverse's upcoming projects, how they had gotten to the point where they had been able to start crowdfunding and such. I mean, kickstarting and such. And then for WEP, it was just interesting to talk to a guy who has made a pretty good name for himself on the entertainment side of YouTube and being like just a commentator on culture and entertainment and his like what inspired him to get into this stuff because a lot of people they they sometimes see entertainment and art as like a waste of time or like something that's not too important and I very much disagree with that, but I
Mm,
do understand that it's like art does not put food on anybody's table unless you are being paid as the creator. However, um, it, you can still enjoy it and still think that it's important and contribute it to society while still keeping a rational head, uh, and being able to realize that, some people don't like being preached to, and it's people like Weaponized Nerd Rage who do that, because even though that he bases his, interests and hobbies in entertainment, he's not going to sit there and tell people that, that this art is going to save them, or this art is going to, change the way society thinks or anything. It's like, no, he just has an interest, and he likes to share his views about it.
Wow,
So,
yeah, that's pretty awesome, man. It sounds like it was a really interesting conversation with him.
oh yeah, and also it did, but I do want to walk back something I said, because I said, like, it doesn't save anybody. It's like, that's not entirely true, because it did save him, and in many ways it did save me. What I meant is, like, it's not, art isn't something that, it's not something that what am I trying to say? It's not something that is necessary for
I,
your physical survival.
right. I think I get what you're about. It's not like someone like a firefighter who's going to go put out a fire or something. It's not
Yeah,
physically
exactly.
going
Yeah,
to stop something from happening, but it is, but it can save lives. I mean, like you said, it
yeah,
can be a big thing, So I think it's it depends on. I think it all depends on how you look at it. How you put that measure that value.
yeah. I guess what I'm saying is, like, it's not like what some of these people are like on Twitter, who go on there and say, like, like, if you like or dislike this, you are X, Y, or Z,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like you can't seriously tell something about somebody or affiliate them with something just based on an art piece that they made. And
Mm.
it's it's complicated, because it's like, it really, because since art is subjective, it varies from person to person what their answer is going to be, if it's essential or not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, yeah, that's a good point. And Dan says art brings the beautiful and the good into people's lives and is the primary way we can make important truths stick in people's minds. So true.
Hmm.
It's just like how uh, that movie in that movie Inception, when Leonardo DiCaprio has that line. He says, "There's nothing harder to kill than an idea."
Oh yeah,
I believe something like that. That is very true.
that's what has made most mainstream artists insane nowadays, is the
Hmm.
fact that is the fact that with, social media, a lot of people can say what's on their mind, and it kills them that they can't tell these people to think differently.
Right. Very true. You get a lot of that going on. Gorgon and Emissary. That's an interesting one. That's an interesting take. I've never seen that one. Anime thighs save lives.
Well, I mean, maybe they do.
Maybe it's possible. Who am I to judge? I love
Yeah,
anime.
I mean, I have not personally been saved by them, but you know,
Hey, just wait, man. Your day will come.
if if I'm walking out of a building that explodes, maybe I'll, fly in the air, and then some thighs will cushion my fall. I don't know.
Dan says a profound truth is above this. That's very true. Uh, um, so you've been doing a lot of writing these days with working on these monster stories and whatnot, and doing articles for the magazine. How do you unwind after a long writing session?
Well, right now I've got the job, and I've got oh boy, I've got a bunch of stuff that is going on IRL that are very, very time consuming and such. So
Mhm.
it's pretty much nothing but work life right.
Wow.
However, I do make time for trying to sit down and read some
Mm,
material,
nice.
read some books, short stories, comics, or I also still play Bloodborne whenever I
That's funny, man.
Bloodborne.
It seems like your style of game, that for sure.
Yeah, that game is my life right now.
So you already beat all the other what's it called?
Dark Souls and
You already
such.
beat Dark Souls and all that?
Oh yeah, but the thing is, I'm having a hard time getting back into any of those. Even though Bloodborne is what almost 5 years old now, I still love it.
Some people like it better, from my understanding, than Dark Souls. So,
Oh yeah, I prefer Bloodborne over Dark Souls.
Hmm.
11 out of 10 times.
Oh man, that's awesome. Nice.
And
Well, how do you keep?
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I'll hold the thought, but I was just gonna say, how do you keep yourself going, man? If with all that, and still manage to find time to write.
It's it's not always easy, and sometimes you do lose. I do lose sight of sitting down and doing what I probably should be doing.
Hmm.
But the thing is, it's if you're really passionate about making something, then you do learn how to integrate it into all the things you juggle in life.
Mm-hmm. And
So
it's a good
yeah,
point. Do you have any advice for new creators out there who might be struggling with that exact thing?
well, I myself am in the uh, I myself am not a creator yet. I'm hoping to be.
You sure have the mentality of one.
Yeah. So what I have found is that if you force too much, you'll overwhelm yourself. But if you establish your life beforehand, like you establish your necessities, so like your job, your um, eating schedule, your any doctor or legal things that you're involved in, just establish your life first. And once you start seeing what your free time window looks like, you're going to start seeing that you naturally integrate your creative endeavors into it. Because if you want to be a creator, you've got to have the same passion of sitting down to write something as you do as sitting down in your free time and watching TV or turning on the game or
Mm.
going out for a drink or something.
Mhm. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I think that's great advice. I think it's not easy, but I think if people can take a step towards that, then they're in the right direction there.
Yeah, it's partially you've got to let some of it naturally just occur. You can't, like I said, you force too much of it and then you get overwhelmed.
Hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Now, I wanted to ask you: are there any horror movies that you can recommend to our viewers out there?
Well, my personal favorites are definitely my personal favorite horror franchise is Saw, and
Really?
I will always praise that franchise.
Nice.
My favorite single horror
Do
movie has got to be The Witch.
The Witch. No,
Um,
I'm not familiar with that one.
oh, that one's great.
Really?
I don't want to say too much. You just have to watch it.
Can't give it away, huh?
However, if you are into uh, witchcraft or just new world folk tales and folklore and such, you'll really dig that.
Oh yeah, it looks really interesting. It's a Brazilian movie. It looks like. Is that right?
Um,
Let's
which
see.
no, it takes place in New England.
Oh really? Yeah, its initial release was in Brazil. Maybe that's just where they released the film. Perhaps I don't know. Unless this is the wrong
Yeah.
one. Maybe I got the wrong film. Well, we'll have to. Who's the
Oh,
director on that one? So everyone
I
is clear on that.
can't remember offhand.
Okay,
Can you
let's.
put it on the screen? I can tell you if
Yeah,
it's
yeah, that's a
better.
good idea. Yeah, smart. 1 second. Pull this out. But yeah, I always love a good horror movie myself, and with
Oh yeah.
Halloween coming up, it's kind of perfect timing for it.
Oh
Again,
yeah.
we're not too far off.
And I also another one that is one of my yep, that's it.
That's it. So
Another
yeah,
one
awesome,
oh,
man.
another one that's one of my all-time favorites is the original Frankenstein movie.
What the original? Really?
Yes. Yes.
Why? What in particular about that version do
Um
you enjoy a lot?
the the fact that it's not necessarily the visuals that scare you, especially for us nowadays, since we have this
Hmm.
since we look at since we look at those black and white horror movies and we know like, oh, that's obviously fake or whatever. But the thing is, the scares in Frankenstein do not come from the visuals. They come from the fact that you're confronting some very uncomfortable truths about mankind.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, because it's people are all it is one of those properties that really effectively tackles the issue of people fear what they do not understand.
Hmm.
And it's
Mm-hmm.
also a very gray moral issue because this is life that is artificially made. But at the same, and so you're asking the question like, you know, should people have the ability to do that? Should people um, just because they can do something, should they? And it's also the fact of the matter. It's like, does the creature have free will? Does the creature have, you know, can it comprehend what it's doing? Can it comprehend human emotions and human thoughts? And at the same
Hmm.
time, it's like it didn't do anything for a while, but at the same time, it had killed a little girl. But then again, when you watch the film, you understand that it never meant to. So it's just it's interesting because really, when you're watching that film, it's a tragedy because everybody and nobody is the antagonist in that film.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point. It sounds like the original film really went to the heart of the actual source material and really tried to
Mm-hmm.
bring that element across.
Yep, Mary Shelley, the original spooky girl.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's such a great tale, and you're right. It is a very tragic story. I think.
Yeah, I do make the argument that horror is just the purest form of tragedy.
Hmm. And what is it? Don't they say something about tragedy being comedy or something? Uh,
I don't believe that.
you don't buy that one?
No,
Oh, that's
no.
funny. But no, that's a really good one. Yeah. So check out that one. And any others that you've seen recently, or any ones that stuck out to you?
Um, not films, but I will say,
Any books, perhaps?
uh,
Or
I mean, books. Uh, I'm always going to recommend. Uh, just anything by Poe. Most of the things by King are always a treat. Anything by Matheson, I really do recommend people look into Washington Irving.
really?
Uh, yeah,
Now, Washington Irving is not the president, right? I'm just
no,
kidding.
no.
I'm just kidding.
Um, the Devil and Tom Walker.
Devil and Tom Walker.
Yeah, that's the one that he is probably best well known for.
Looks like he did. He also do the Legend of Sleepy Hollow.
Yes, yes. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yes, yeah, because I know that one for sure. That's the Headless Horseman. No,
Mm-hmm.
it says he also did something called Rip Van Winkle, I
Yep, Rip
believe.
Van Winkle.
I don't know what that is, but I've heard of it before. I know that.
Yep.
Oh, look, Scott joined us. But so what? Can you tell us a little bit about Washington Irving then, for
Well,
maybe some people who don't know?
he's actually one of the very first writers who is credited with coming up with an American voice for literature. Because the thing is, when the Europeans first settled in the United States, or what was to become the United States, people argued that there was no that there was no distinct American style. It was just Europeans exploring a new world.
Mm-hmm.
And that is true in a way. And of course, there's also the argument that the Native Americans, who had their mythologies and their storytelling beforehand, they could be considered the original American voice. But if we're looking to the Europeans as being the establishment of the American culture that we know today, then where people are wondering, is there really an American style and voice? And so what Washington Irving did was he took locations in the New World and then he established a European tale to these locations here. But what he did was he would tweak and tinker some things so that the characters would have to experience something that could only be uniquely seen in America. And in a way, he by him doing that, he opened the doors for future writers to become uniquely American thinkers and influencers.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. Huh. Yeah, it's kind of what led to what you say, like the American novel, right? The what did they call it? The Great American Novel.
I wouldn't say that. This is a little more base
Really?
in, yeah, a little more. It's a little more at the heart of just telling a simple story, because novels are much longer than what Washington Irving
Hmm.
is known for creating. So,
More like
but I
short
mean, if you want,
stories.
no, because if you want the creator of the American short story and just basically um, our understanding of modern short stories in general, you have to go to Edgar Allan Poe.
Mm-hmm.
I think he is actually like credited. Like, I think a lot of professors and scholars actually refer to Poe as the founder of the American short story.
And he's a big influence on your work you mentioned earlier.
Oh yeah, and the thing is, when you look at the way that Poe writes, it's not necessarily his words; it's the structure of how he organizes everything that you can still see used very much today in writing. It's all about separating the paragraphs, the lengths of the story, the how you separate descriptions with dialogue. It's he just kind of really built the foundation of how we write in short story today.
Hmm. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It sounds like you've really are fascinated by short stories.
Um, yes
Like,
and no. I mean,
really?
I don't really have a preference. I don't really have a preference because I think most of the books I've read are novels, actually.
Hmm.
But I still do very much enjoy short stories.
What's
And
a,
especially, I think one of my favorite short story writers is Nathaniel Hawthorne.
hmm.
And and I do
He's, he sounds
I
like
do
he would have
delve.
known Washington Irving.
I'm sorry, what?
He sounds like a guy who would have known Washington Irving.
Oh,
You know?
Nathaniel Hawthorne.
Yeah, I don't know. The name just sounds like they were friends for
Oh
some reason.
no, no, they're separated by quite some time. But no,
I should have known.
Nathaniel Hawthorne. He's the guy who wrote the Scarlet Letter.
Mm. Hmm.
He also wrote. Oh man, it's the hard part is just picking a few things that he's known for. He
He's
did
quite
write
prolific. Yeah.
yeah, he did write one of my favorite short stories called "The Minister's Black Veil." I do recommend people read that.
This is
And
Black Veil.
that's not a horror story. That's I'm not sure how to categorize that one. Just recommend people just read it.
That's pretty funny. Yeah. Yeah. So you have quite a literature background. You've definitely delved into a lot of different areas. It seems.
Yeah, I mean, I started reading just especially growing up as a young adult, I tore into Stephen King, Peter Benchley, and Michael Crichton, and
Wow.
then it led to the classical writers, and I just kind of knew that this is the stuff that I love. This is things that I want to pursue. This is
It's
what I
pretty
want to do.
amazing. So it's almost like you've been preparing for your writing for a very long time in a lot of ways.
Yeah, but what's interesting is just I think that it almost feels like I've always been doing it in a way because, even as a kid, when I was like really little kid, when I'm just playing with my toys, I can't just grab two action figures and have them go at it. It's like I had to think of a reason why they would be fighting.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man, so the storytelling bug was you had it even as a kid.
Yeah, I think so. It's
Yeah.
um it's interesting. Even even if I just grabbed my two dinosaur toys, it's like, what was this one doing? Was he hungry? Was he not? What?
The early stages of a young writer.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know. Because the thing is, it's kind of funny because a lot of the stuff, like when you were trying to be a creator and then people ask you questions about, how'd you get to this point? It's kind of hard to pick the distinct moments because it all kind of accumulates over time, especially with, like I mentioned, how I love writing dialogue. And the reason I do that, I love it, is because I like listening to people. I like hearing people talk.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
and the thing is, you do that every day. So it's not like every time that I'm listening to people that I'm thinking like, oh, how am I going to integrate this into my book? You know, it's when I'm sitting down to write, I'm thinking about everything that I've experienced before that day. And then sometimes I can pull from something that I've experienced.
And you find that helps when you sit down to start writing?
Yeah, well, like especially with dialogue, it's like, I mean, just really pay attention to how people talk. Like, listen to their ums or uhs, or like watch their body language. See if their like eyes are darting. Are they biting their lip? Are they breathing normally, or are they hyperventilating? Are they do they keep looking at something across the room? And also listen to like their accents or their slangs or whatever. That can tell you about, are they educated, or it can tell you like, has this person been experienced, or like what did this person go through today that has made them happy, sad, or whatever.
Hmm.
It's
It's fascinating, man.
people's communication are very is it's very very it's very very interesting because it's always fun to not I don't want people to assume what's on another person's mind, but it's very fun to sit there and wonder.
Oh yeah, yeah. That sounds good, and it informs your writing. Like you said.
Yeah.
That's really good. Yeah. It's funny. I was thinking if you had to choose a backup career, you might be good as an investigator. Maybe in
Well,
another life, right?
yeah, well, I did minor in journalism, so
Yeah, well, that helps, right? Maybe a
yeah.
journalist then, yeah. I can tell. I can definitely tell, man. Um, yeah, Dan says you can tell he listened to people speak. Yeah, yeah, that's a journalist for you right there, man. You got the heart for it, man.
Except I'll never be hired because I would report on what they said instead of what they didn't say.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
That was a
um,
joke part, but
but so I wanted to ask another question here, which is are there any messages or themes that you'd like to convey through your writing?
um, it really has to do with each individual writing. Like with these monster short stories, there might be like maybe a theme or two that I might want to just convey here and there, but there's not really anything no message that I'm trying to get across.
Hmm.
I think the one that I can think of that's got an actual theme and a message that I would want to get across is actually in my big horror project that I'm inching towards. And for that one, I'm trying to just, I'm trying to get people back to, because you see a lot of works and projects and such that have people kind of like standing up for a cause or like some movement or something. And I feel like there's been like this vacancy of just like a scare or a fear of just something a little more close to home. And I kind of want to get back to like that base. I kind of want to convey to people that it's like, sometimes there are more singular fears that should be confronted. And sometimes not everyone has time for worrying about going to a march or a rally or something. Like the main horror project I'm working on, it's all about a mother trying to get her son back, and it's constantly fearing that he might be dead before he can get to her, before she can get to him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I don't know. It's like, I mean, I saw the It Chapter 2 the other day, and
No spoilers.
yeah, no, I won't spoil it, but I'll just say it's like, even though it had its problems, it's like, it was kind of refreshing that it was just like a group of people who were dealing with this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, there was no like end of the world scenarios, or there's no like, standing up to the corrupt government or something like that. It's like, it was just 5 people trying to survive.
So yeah, it's kind of going on based on your answer there. Kind of saying like most of you're not really trying to tell a message. Do you think a lot of audiences are kind of sick of being told messages blatantly through the media that they're trying to get some escapism through, or maybe some other purpose
I
through?
think so. But I think what I'm getting at is like, I think some people are yearning, especially, I mean, me, I mean, that's why I'm writing this. I'm yearning more for just something that's like a relatable, or maybe not relatable, but like just like a base, um, a base, I'm having a hard time thinking right now.
No worries.
Like something that's not grand, or something that's not
Mm.
world
Mundane.
threat. Yeah, well, not mundane, because I mean, obviously, having your child taken from you is not
Mundane
something
situation.
small.
All
But
right.
but at the same time, it's like, it's just one kid, and it's just one parent.
It's a singular, very localized.
A very condensed, yes.
Yeah, it's not something happening on a global scale, for example.
Yeah. I mean,
Very
there
intimate.
are
Very,
some
very intimate.
there are some threats that can escalate into that.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's going on behind the scenes, and in the pursuit of this um, this singular goal, there she realizes that there are bigger things going on. However, it does not change her dedication to trying to still save her kid.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like it'll be interesting. Is this gonna be a novel then?
This is the one that I'm hoping to turn into a comic at some point. But I
Nice,
am
man.
also hoping to. I am also doing like a novelish or novella. I'm not sure what the exact length
Oh,
is going to be,
uh-huh,
but
uh-huh.
I'm hoping to do 2 iterations of it. And I've already like drafted up like basic ideas. I've already kind of determined that even though it'll be the same characters and same name and everything, I think that there will be differences between the book and the comic.
Nice. That's a pretty smart
And
idea. Yeah.
yeah, and because there's some things I would love to do in the book, but would be hard to portray in a comic, and then vice versa.
Right. There's always strengths to each medium that
Yeah,
they do better than the other. Now,
yeah.
I'm very
And if
interested
there's
about
anybody,
this.
oh,
Sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. I was gonna say I'm just very interested in this story just because it sounds like it'll be a really emotional story between the mother and her son, you said, right?
Yes, yeah.
And then layer it on top your storytelling elements and stuff. I'm really excited to see where you take that.
Hmm. Yeah, and I can I've already shared a few things that some artists have made for it.
Nice. Would you mind
Um,
sharing those right now? We could do a screen share
oh,
if you don't,
sure.
if you can, if you have
I
them available.
can't do a screen share here. Let me see.
If you see at the bottom of your screen, you
Can
should
you
be able
still hear?
to.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Here, let me. Do, do, do,
Yeah,
do, do.
if you
Let
send them on
me.
over, I can certainly bring up as well. But that's interesting. Do you have plans for when you might be thinking about releasing this project?
Um, I'm hoping to. I'm hoping to. Sorry, I'm searching into.
No worries.
Um, but I am hoping to um, work on the actual story and
Mm-hmm.
tighten up because I've already written a big chunk of it, and so it's probably there's probably a big portion of it that I could release right now. But I just want to make sure that I get it edited and cleaned up and everything before I make an official announcement or anything.
So probably
And
the short stories will come out first.
oh yeah, definitely. And even they're not all gonna pop. They're not all releasing on the same day because I need a thumbnail for each of them.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like I said, they won't get attention unless they get images. So I'll need an image for each of them.
So you're kind of
Um,
planning to release it on a like a schedule basis, kind of come back for a new
yeah,
story every so often.
yeah, exactly. But in
Nice.
terms of like the main horror project, that will be. I'm aiming for a first release in early to mid October, and then I'll keep adding on to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm hoping that I can make a. I'm hoping that I can get together enough artwork and enough ideas and concrete like plans that I can start to gather up together and make a proposal to you guys and see if we can see if we can do like a another comic. So
Nice, man. That sounds exciting.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Based on that idea, Scott asked, "Do you have any choice for the artist yet, or are you still kind of shopping around?" Oh, uh-oh. Looks like we lost him for a second. I'm sure he'll be back here in just a second. He may have just dropped out of the chat, and there he is. Welcome back.
Hey, sorry about that. Here, one
No, it's
second.
all right. I guess left me for to do my own little one man show there for a second. Uh,
Here, give me 1 second.
no worries, man. Uh, um, but yeah, no. I'm if you have the images, I can bring those up.
Yeah, give me a second. I'm trying to attach the mic back to this thing.
Oh,
Hold on.
Intense Thinker says I'm one of the artists. Oh, really? Interesting. That's awesome, man. That's really cool to hear. There,
Here, one
I didn't know
second.
that.
1 second. Crap.
Nice,
Uh,
dude.
where?
You've been holding out on us, Salem.
Yeah, once I'm not trying to hold out. I'm trying to find the
I know.
trying to
I'm
find
just
the.
giving you a hard time. But so you kind of been shopping around some ideas. It sounds like with some artists.
Here, can you hear me now?
Yep, you're still good to go.
Oh darn it, my mic completely busted. Now it's just letting me listen
Oh, you're
on the
getting.
phone.
Oh, really? Jeez, man. Sorry to hear it. Well, we'll have to get,
Yeah,
at
well,
least you're coming through all right. We can hear you. We can hear you good. So
all right, good. Okay, in terms of getting you the images, the the what happened was it disconnected because it's got me connected to this thing through the browser, and as soon as
mm.
I tried to type something in the browser, it pulled me out of the stream.
So are you using Chrome?
Yeah,
Huh.
it's what it's
It's
looking like.
odd. That's unusual. It usually is a little more flexible than that, but that's no worries. We can always show those out later. Did you post those on Twitter?
Here, I'll here if you go to at capital JATCS underscore,
Mm-hmm.
you'll probably be able to find the images there.
Now, I believe this is another one of your artists. I'm thinking. Is that
Which one?
is that right? The one you just mentioned out here.
Oh,
Yeah.
Slim?
JTCS.
Oh, no, no, no,
Yeah.
no. That's the account for my actual project.
Oh, really? Oh, so the name of your project is Mother Grimm. Ah, now it all makes sense. Someone in the reason I was trying to make sense of it is someone in the chat earlier had said Mother Grimm, and I was trying to link that back. So that's why they were saying that. Oh, nice, man. That's a cool title.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'll keep it, but it's just something
Really?
I gave to it too.
Hey, man.
Um,
Whatever
just
works,
to,
for you. But you got my blessing. So yeah, I have it here. So where would I find the image then?
I guess you would go to the actual profiles page and then click the media, and you'll probably see the images there.
Let's see. And is it just this the first ones we see here?
Probably. I would have to see them,
I'll
and
go
I
ahead and pull
can't.
them up for this.
Unfortunately,
That's no worries. I'll go and pull them up for
with the
the.
way that it's cut out, unfortunately, the way that this is cut out, I can't be looking at. I mean, I can't leave this window right now, or I'll risk.
Oh, no worries. You'll be able to
Um,
see it in just a second. Give me one moment here. Once I share it with the world, as they say. Here it is. So so this character is the character in question.
yeah, that's her.
Nice, man. It's funny because I remember seeing some of this stuff posted a while back. I didn't I hate to admit it, but I didn't realize it was your project. I'm embarrassed to
Yeah,
admit it.
that's fine. No
Um,
problem, man.
but it caught my
But
eye even
the
from
very
when I first
first
saw
one
it.
was the very first. I'm sorry, the very first image was made a few years ago by the artist called Spooky Panda Girl.
Nice. Is that the one on the top left there?
No, down.
The
Yep.
bottom left here?
Yes.
Nice. Very cool. Yeah, that one has a fun pattern. I really like the clothing pattern. And it's
Yeah,
such
and
an interesting design with that claw or the skeleton hand.
yeah, and
I love that make that bigger.
she'll actually she actually yeah she actually has both her hands like that at times.
Really?
Yeah.
Hmm. I'm assuming people can look forward to learning more about why she's like that and what that involves.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you'll see that in the actual thing, and I can share whatever you want to know about. But understand, like, I don't have anything to really point to say like, hey, check this out, because the things I've released in the past I've already taken down because they weren't up to the quality that I wanted.
Hmm.
However, like I said, you can there's some images now that exist, and so that it can start gaining some interest.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and retweet that. And then moving on to the next one we see. Is this another image from the series, or is this from the same
Yeah,
artist?
that's one of the antagonists.
Oh wow, man, I love that power there. That looks really cool. They're
Yeah.
like tattoos, glowing tattoos.
Yep, that is actually that is Sedna, the Inuit goddess of the
Oh
underworld, the water, and the hunt.
man, that's so cool. Wow, that's really cool, man. It makes me really excited to for this series.
Yeah, and
Is it
I'm
going to be a singular or a series, like a one
um
off?
I think it would be I think it'd be a one-off, but it would be definitely lengthy.
Nice, nice.
Um Now, yeah, and if it's okay with you, I just want to tell you what each of the artists are. That when you like
Yes,
go through
please. Yeah, did we go over
the
we went through the first artist, right? We got
yeah, so this is a friend of mine. Her name is Katie Beth. She goes by Skeletal K.
do they all have Twitter accounts? I can also plug those at the end as well.
Yep, I do. Yep, they should, and I think that I may have mentioned them in the
Good.
actual tweets. I don't know though.
Cool, cool, cool. Nice.
Like I said, unfortunately, I can't look on Twitter right now.
Sorry, yeah, I don't know why it did that to you, but you're locked in place now. We've got you on lockdown. But no, I mean, that's just, I mean, as you can see, as everyone can see here, it's just a really, really cool piece of artwork. And, kind of going based on what we were talking about earlier about monsters, we talked a lot of classic monsters, I think, a little earlier. But there's
Hmm.
so many interesting, when we talked about, we also talked about a lot of myth and mythology. And so I just think that kind of stuff, there's so many wide variety of stuff you can encompass. And things such as like this character you said is a Inuit goddess, right?
Hmm.
Which is just so I find that so interesting. So
Yeah, there's a lot of calls to mythology and religion in this,
nice, man. Yeah,
um, and and Inuit mythology I think is one of the main ones that I use.
nice. So can you you volume it down there a little bit? Do you mind seeing if it went back up by any chance?
Oh, I'm sorry, what?
Your volume, it's a little muffled. I don't.
Oh, here.
Yeah, that's a little better. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No, no worries. I just want to make sure it was coming through clear for everyone. But so we have another set of images here.
Yeah, that one was done by guy goes by Shido, and
Huh.
he he'll be doing a piece in the future, but he sketched this up and then he because he just said he wanted to familiarize himself with the character,
Hmm.
and so he sent that to me, and that I was not expecting to see this one or Slim's for that matter. And I really like Shido's work. He's a very, very unique artist.
Yeah, that's really nice piece. Yeah. I really, like you said, I really like his style there. It's you can see he put a lot of attention to it. Even though
Hmm.
he said even though he called it a sketch, didn't he?
Yeah, that's the same reaction I gave to him. A sketch.
Oh, that's funny. Oh man, oh, that's a great piece too, and it's definitely there's a consistency here of a definite the character having a definite sense of style herself.
Yeah, except and you're going to see this from there's another artist who is working on the character, and she's going to be making an image of Jackie before the paranormal events occur.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't Jackie's like go-to clothing style. Like this isn't what she would be wanting to wear.
Really?
But she's caught in a position where she can't. She can't afford the luxury of wearing what she wants. She needs to wear what she needs.
Wow.
And so this is just what she could get her hands on.
Interesting. Well, that'll be cool. It'll be
Because
interesting to see the.
she's actually very, very like feminine and very, very girly type.
I wondered if
Um,
that's what you were hinting at.
yeah, because like like before that, she was wearing like white blouses and like long skirts and such.
Yeah, it's a little bit different than that, isn't it? Now,
Hmm.
well, that's interesting. It points to something happens, I guess, and it causes her to start changing and having to do these things.
Yes.
Nice, nice. Well, that's awesome. The more I hear about this story, the more interested I become about it. And then we have another piece here.
Yeah, Slim sent that to me.
Nice.
And I really, really, I really, really dug the coat because the thing is,
Hmm.
she is a Grim Reaper, and I
Oh
liked how
wow.
the coat was like, I liked how the coat was like, it kind of mimics like a robe in a way, but it doesn't go full out.
Hmm.
I really like
I
that.
could see that. Yeah, it's almost like it's still a jacket, but it does give off that vibe.
Yeah,
Yeah, totally. You know what's funny? It also reminds me. It's like a total anime style coat. You know,
yeah,
it's super
yeah.
epic and it looks great in the
The
wind.
90s edge.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's great, man. So but it brings up a good point. You mentioned she's a reaper.
Yeah,
Nice, man.
yeah. She got killed when she was out with her son, and her son got kidnapped,
Wow.
and she gets the opportunity to come back, but she has to take on this new role.
So, um, does she go? Does she want to get revenge?
Not as much as she wants to just find her kid.
Really? Because the kid's still alive, she still has a chance to make things
Yes,
right.
but the thing is, she doesn't know where he is.
Hmm. Wow. So then that's where the journey begins of searching for her son.
Yes.
That's pretty exciting, man. I think that's a really compelling story. Just I love the all the different elements you've thrown in there. It's gonna be really cool, man. And so, can I ask you, are there anything you could tease maybe, or any thoughts at this moment about bringing your short story universe into that novel, or are they completely separate universes at this time?
Oh, completely separate.
Completely separate.
There is if you want to, if you by chance want to go back on there,
Oh,
there
sure.
is
Yeah.
some
Sorry.
monsters in there is some monsters in the story.
Let's see. Is that just a little bit far down? Yeah, I see it there.
It's not pulled up.
Oh no, sorry. All right. So I think I
Okay, yep,
see
I
one
see him.
there. This guy? Ooh,
Yep,
ooh, he is not looking so good.
that is Kelut,
Oh man.
and that is I've actually he's actually a combination of
Oh,
two different. He's a combination of a folklore and an Inuit myth, a
wow.
mythological monster. Um, so he's pretty much the equivalent of an Inuit hellhound. But I've also in the story I've combined him with the uh, the ghost stories of the Black Dog of Lake Erie,
Oh, nice. That's cool. I like that. Give
and
it a
he's
bit of
kind
a
of like,
spin.
and this is the guy. This is the guy who gives Jackie the ability to become a Reaper.
Hmm.
And this piece was made by another artist friend of mine who goes by Oman Amakan.
And so what kind of elements do you draw from the two different sources when you wanted to create your own um kind of supernatural entity like this?
Well, I kept the name. You know, he's still named Kelut, but the thing is, Sedna is the goddess of the sea, and I found that I would be able to combine him with the Black Dog Lake Erie because he he's affiliated with the water, and one of the myths about Sedna is that she wanted to marry a dog. So um, I have this dog, Kilut and Sedna, having like they're like they're like a team up in a way, whereas like
Mm,
he kind of acts as more of like an ambassador of her.
interesting. Yeah.
And yeah, and I took elements that I could like pin connections to, and I try to create my own little version of it.
Wow, that's cool. I like how you did that and made an amalgam of it, keeping some of the elements, and trading some for others.
Yeah.
It came out incredible. I mean, even the art here is I want it's just such a visceral image that we see, and even just the gruesome detail of it is really cool. It's quite a striking image.
Yeah, I yeah, I really really like all the friends that I have, all the people I've befriended on here, especially the artists I've befriended. I love returning to them, and I love seeing what they can do. It's
Nice.
because I love the combination of the writer and artist, because it's so interesting to see how how two people are able to clash thoughts, and then the visual that becomes of it is
Mm.
fascinating to me.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's a pretty amazing thing when you kind of get both influences coming in at it. It's a new creation that not either one could create without the other. Yeah.
Hmm.
But no, that's cool, man. Well, I hope we get to see more art. Do you have any more other creatures we can check out at this time? We
Um,
love a good monster around here.
yeah, I don't think I have any more. I can tell you right now. I can tell you the monsters that will be coming up in the first volume, and then
Mhm.
I have not written any of it, and I'm not going to write any until I get a little bit of my main project done.
Mhm.
But I will. I can tell you what the lineup for the second volume of short stories will be.
Oh, nearly.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's pretty good. I'll take that.
Okay. Well, okay, so the first one, you've got um you've got the Jersey Devil, you've got Mothman,
Yes.
you have Succubus, you have Vampire, you have the um oh shoot, I can't even remember my own list. Um
You need a
what's
Word
the other one?
document, man. Well,
I
Mothman's
think I do.
another favorite of mine. You gotta love the classics, man. Right? I mean, there's just
Oh
something
yeah.
about them.
Oh yeah, duh, Sirens.
Mhm. Mhm. Going back to the Greek myths.
Yep. Okay, and then for and then the sixth one in that list is are that their original creation, which are the Night Witches, and actually those are actually a creation of Omenomicon, the one who drew Kilut.
Really? Yeah,
Yes.
you mentioned the Necronomicon, and we haven't really even touched on it. Are you a fan of Lovecraft much at all?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mentioned him. Yeah, he's a big influence
That
on
big
me.
influence on you as well, really? Okay, nice, man. Yeah,
And I
the
was saying
oh,
Omenomicon. That's what the art goes by.
what is it? Sorry?
I was saying Omenomicon. That's what the artist goes by.
Oh, I see. Sorry about that. Ha ha ha. I misunderstood.
Yeah. So Omen, she came up with the Night Witches, and that's who I was talking to, and that's what I started putting together.
Oh, okay. Night witches, man.
And then And then, like I said, she also did Kilut.
Nice. Yeah, that's very, very, really cool art there. I love the style, you know. Nice, man. Well, that's awesome. I just love the combination of different elements you're bringing in. It's clear that you've not only done research, but that you're passionate about the subject, and I think that comes through with the writing. This is like some, I think people are going to really be drawn to this and really be fascinated by all the kind of lore and other elements that you bring into it.
Yeah, I hope so. Um, and then, like I said, I've already got this for the second one, for the second volume.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just mention that.
Oh yes,
So
please.
for the second volume, I've got Faye.
Nice.
I've got Black Dog of Lake Erie.
Oh, okay.
Got Hodag,
Hodag. Who dag? Who dad?
Hodag.
Hodag. Interesting.
Kitsune,
Oh, nice.
Wendigo,
Mm.
El Chupacabra, and then I'll have an original monster.
Nice, man. So, oh, we lost him again. He'll be back in just a second. I think he clicked out of the wrong window. But that's an interesting point that he brings up with the original monster, which he mentioned he was going to do a monster in the first volume as well. And so that becomes a new thing every time he does a volume, do a new monster, original monster. That would be pretty cool.
Don't worry,
So,
hello.
hey, so I was actually just telling the viewers I brought up a question that I want to ask you, which was, um, is it going to be a plan of yours to do an original monster with each new volume?
Um, I'm not sure. I think that it'll be however I'm feeling at the time.
Interesting.
Um,
I'll
I
be
mean, because
fascinated to hear about your monster because that's gonna be a fun task for you, man. Because creating a monster is that's a hard one, man. Believe me, I've thought
oh,
about it.
oh, I've actually I've actually already made it. I just don't
Nice,
know
man. Ooh, I
I
can't
just
wait.
don't know I don't know what to call it or anything. So,
Nice, dude. Well,
and
I'll
like
be
I
looking
said,
forward to that.
I'm not going to be writing it anytime soon. So,
Nice. Yeah, is that one of the last short stories you're gonna write, you think?
um, for the second volume, yes, but the whole idea of this universe that I've created is that I'll be able to keep returning to it.
When
I'll
you
be able
want
to
to.
just keep adding to it. So
Nice.
there's really no planned ending.
You're just gonna put it out there and see how it goes, kind of organically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Nice, man. Well, that's awesome. It sounds like people have a lot to look forward to with your projects, with from your short stories to your longer works, as well as the articles. Of course, in the magazine as well, and even some comic work. It sounds like maybe in the future.
Yeah, and I hope people like it. And thing is, I the only way that I'll know if I'm good at if I'm good at this or not is if I get it out there and get some feedback. So,
So yeah, feedback is definitely important. That's for sure. And so well, we're wrapping up here. We're getting to the end of our time, but I just wanted to ask you if there's anything else you want to tell your fans out there, or maybe some people who are looking to check out your stuff in the future.
all I ask is that um, you guys just be brutally honest with me when you look into it or read it or anything. And I'm, I'm also just hoping that I'm able to create something worthwhile that people are going to enjoy.
That's awesome, man. I'm sure I know I'm looking forward to it, so I'm sure a lot of people will really enjoy that as well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Thanks again for joining us, man. And where can people follow you online?
Just follow me at Twitter at Salem_LeBlanc.
Salem LeBlanc.
And yeah, and you can follow me on Instagram as well at all one word, all lowercase, Salem Xavier LeBlanc.
And so you do some stuff on Instagram as well, then?
Yeah, Instagram and Twitter is pretty much where it's at for
Nice,
me.
man. Yeah, that's cool, man. I haven't done much on Instagram myself, but that's a good place to start. And so
Hmm.
I believe I have you here, Xavier D. LeBlanc. Is that right?
Salem Xavier LeBlanc.
Uh, Salem Xavier.
Or some people pronounce it Xavier.
Shoot, I'm having a. Oh, I put X.
And it's Xavier.
XAVIR.
IER.
Instagram.
So Salem Xavier
Apparently, I'm terrible at
Xavier.
finding people on Instagram, but please look them up on there, guys. Sorry about
There you
that.
go. That's fine. No
um,
worries.
but yeah, well, so I appreciate you coming on, man. And again, I'm super excited about the monster stuff we've seen and from the characters. I mean, those characters were awesome, and the monsters are really cool. And I can tell you're very passionate about mythology, and I am too. So I can really appreciate that. So again, thank you for taking your time, man, and appreciate everyone who joined us in the chat and watched with us. And
Well,
please go. Sorry,
well,
go ahead.
hey, I just want to say, Phil, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome, man. We'll have to have you on for another stream, man. It was quite fascinating to hear all your knowledgeable stuff about myths and stuff. I was for me it was very interesting. So yeah, well maybe we'll have to do a history podcast with you sometime. Awesome, man. Well, thank you again, and thank you everyone, and everyone have a great night. We'll see you next time.
All right,
Take
good night.
care.